Hello everyone, welcome again to another video in which we try to help students who are going to revise didactics or prepare for exams. My name is Hicham Boukhechba, a lecturer at Jalfa University, Algeria. Now, the main aims of this course is first to understand the fundamental concepts underlying teaching approaches and methods. From this, one can have a better understanding of how to tackle questions related to didactics for yielding a better writing composition either for regular exams or for the Ph.D. entrance one. Last, we try to provide something practical to wrap up all information by answering the question, what constitutes a good language teaching theory? The latter will be done in the form of an essay. Before going further, it helps to understand that didactics simply stands for teaching approaches and method. Yet being a science often means the picture gets complicated once one starts delving further. Thus, let's start by looking at the general aims. First, we have improving the quality of language teaching and learning. If you remember in the last video, I referred to that implicit intention behind a question. Now, one should always remember that any question or issue raised in didactics should be aligned with this aim. So, even when the talk is about traditional approaches, which sometimes are deemed to be not successful at the time they were developed, they were seen to be effective. Number two, didactics is considered the science. Thus, all the findings have to be grounded on a solid methodology. Theories and methods have to be applicable, effective, efficient, replicable. So for those who are concerned, for example, with the exams of a PhD exam, you should remember that if didactics is brought up with the subject of research methodology, this is the entry point to answer any question. And I do believe it one of the years, I don't really remember it, but I think one of the years this question was in fact raised and how research methodology contribute to didactics. Now, if all the approaches and methods are seeking maximum effectiveness, why do we have so many? The answer to the question lies in the existence of several factors. In this video, we will talk about three. We talk about language, learning, and some external factors. Now, to begin with, the primary thing we teach is language. Therefore, our understanding of the latter is directly responsible for all the alteration on how we teach it. For instance, in the past, our perception of language was rather limited. It was looked at as merely as a system of rules. Now, understanding these rules was seen to be enough to master the language. As a repercussion, the grammar translation method, for instance, focuses on this idea. Then, with the growing realization that language is more complex, and it is so hard to be taught holistically, there was a consideration to divide language into skills: writing, reading, listening, and speaking. For example, we have some approaches, for example, like the audiolingual, focusing only mainly on in the speaking and listening and speaking. Then researchers acknowledge the importance of factors such as the social and the cultural ones, often incorporated are necessary skills that need to be mastered if one to learn language. Here comes the significance, for example, of sociolinguistics, anthropology. So more theoreticians are involved, in this case from general linguistics, which is responsible for providing us about theories about language, the primary source of understanding language, to sociolinguistics and others. After this, we started to look at teaching more than just simple transfer of knowledge from the teacher to the learner. So we start to look at beyond language and study how learning takes place. Hence comes psychology and learning theories. And if we add language to this, we get psycholinguistics. For example, at some point, learning language was simply seen as a change in behavior which comes from the interplay between stimulus and response. Thus, we have behaviorism views about learning. In this regard, one can think about the audiolingual method, for example, which really uses this theory. Now, with the advent of modern machinery, we started looking into the processes that occur inside the mind, such the role of the brain and the memory. All of a sudden, the talk started to be about facilitating lessons to be learned easily using visual aids to motivate learners. Now, yet still both of them, behaviorism and cognitivism, still both focused on teaching, looked at learning as a simple transfer of learning, of knowledge, and emphasizing teaching. And with the advent with constructivism, the weight laid on learners. Practitioners realized that more teaching does not necessarily bring more learning. Concepts such as, for example, learner's experience, collaboration, scaffolding, learner autonomy, self-guiding have been included in the field of teaching and learning. These similar ideas can be also told about connectivism. Also, it shares similar ideas. So, in short, the first two, that was focused mostly on teaching, thinking that, for example, if the teacher know, for example, knowledge A, the learner is going to learn that knowledge in the same way. Then with constructivism, no, it's we had new ideas, for example, constructed reality, negotiated reality. Here comes like learner-centeredness. So the discussion about these theories takes us to psycholinguistics and its contribution to didactics. Therefore, for example, if one is presented with the question how first language theories apply and applied linguistics helped in shaping teaching approaches, this is the entry point. In fact, what I was talking about now, for example, if we put everything in one place, like for example, the theories about language, linguistics, and psycholinguistics, and all this, we are talking now about the applied linguistics. And it is one of the really occurring question of how applied linguistics contribute to didactics. So now we try to answer the question, what constitutes a good language teaching theory? In order to tackle this question, I want to talk about a really good quote, which I really seen that it helps and wrap up all the information we said. So, according to Nagel, 1961, a good language teaching theory will strive to provide conceptual framework devised for identifying all factors relevant in the teaching of languages and the relationship between them, and for giving effective direction to the practice of language teaching supported by the necessary research. In this quotation, in fact, we can identify several questions, especially these questions that are often asked in exams and PhD entrance one. For example, we have like teaching theories, so it's the talk about them. We have the relationship, for example, between all the factors in teaching that I'm going to talk about later. And there is the mention of the practice and research, because most of the time we have this question, should teachers be practitioners and at the same time theoretician in this regard? So this, I believe this quote is really good. So I'm going to put the question discuss here, and we are going to do this in the form of an essay. So let's start first by an introduction. What I said here, for example, the history of second language teaching is marked by numerous approaches and methods. This is a very like cliche sentence. While there is no question that the strive for effectiveness is the main aim, the involvement of several factors in learning is the reason behind such diversity. So what I did here, I reminded the learner, the reader, that there's always that aim of reaching effectiveness. Now, accordingly, the quest for what can be deemed as a good language theory necessitates pondering on these factors and the relationship between them. Furthermore, a teacher is not expected to assume the role of theoretician, thus the support of necessary research to render theory into practice is imperative. I am not really quite happy about this introduction. I think there is room to be improved. And if any you want to propose something, please leave something in the comments. Now, paragraph one, I'm going to talk about language. So the first question that needs to be addressed in language teaching and learning is purely a linguistic one. What is language? Now, our understanding of the latter is responsible for shaping the rudimentary belief of what to be considered and later taught. So this is what I was saying, that we need to understand what language is, and this is so important. For instance, in the time when language was conceived as a system of rules to be recited, the result was the grammar translation method, in which memorization is a defining criteria. So simply it was like, if you want to learn language, you have to memorize all the rules. Today, thanks to the scientific study of language, which is linguistics. Language is looked at as a set of competencies ranging from linguistic, communicative, sociolinguistic, and intercultural ones, each of which requires a felicitous approach or methods to be taught. So what I'm saying here that these factors and these approaches, these competencies, each time we have a new one, we must have like a new kind of approach. Number two is the inclusion of psychology. Beside linguistic factors, the inclusion of psychological ones in teaching has brought radical changes. Educational psychology has advanced insight from first language acquisition theories into teaching for a better understanding of how learners absorb, retain information. So I'm talking here about psychology. Consequently, notions such as learner's capacity, learning styles, and motivation have become essential in teaching context. As an example, these concepts are limpidly reflected in humanistic approaches such as community language learning, Silent-Wen, and Suggestopedia. So, because all of these were influenced by the work of cognitivism. Now, next paragraph, I'm going to talk about the balance. And this is something I did not refer to. Since we have like so many factors, a theory should balance between all of them. Now, the factors discussed above are not meant to be looked at separately, but they are interrelated as altering one aspect has repercussion on the other. In this regard, Stern 1983 uses the term coherence and consistency to designate that. All parts should fit together in a manner which can be explained. He insists that a good theory of language teaching needs to account for potential inconsistencies that may arise in different contexts. In other words, it needs to be generalized. And this can be also kind of an entry point, especially, for example, if we are talking about eclecticism and etc. So we need that kind of a balance. A very good example that a teacher of mine told me once that, for example, difference between the grammar translation method and the direct method, for example, if we see that they constitute, for example, two extreme points. One point we have, for example, just writing, and we have the grammar in one side, and we have the direct method in which we have, like, for example, you don't teach grammar at all, and we still have this problem in our schools when we say don't teach grammar. And now, for example, with the communicative approach, we say we should balance. The next paragraph, we talk about the link with the practice, because what we said is all at the level of theory. Albeit all that has been referred to so far is at the level of theory, every factor considered has consequences on various elements involved in the practice of teaching inside the classroom, such as syllabus, learner's role, teacher's roles, classroom activities, and assessment. Therefore, even if the teacher is not aware of the underlying principles behind the adopted method of teaching, they come to play a major role in determining the quality of teaching. Because this is the problem, it's not a problem, because most of the time teachers are asked to, for example, apply a certain method and implement a certain method. So we are practitioners, are teachers, but the way we do it, in fact, it's further inspired from certain approach, and it makes a difference. Now, next, finally, in the conclusion, in agreement with Stern, recognizing different aspects and having a wide perspective are criteria that contribute to a better understanding of language teaching. Although the current literature on the matter is voluminous, it remains not satisfactory as identifying only relevant factors alone in language teaching is not sufficient. Both an alignment and balance between them need to be maintained to arrive at effectiveness, efficiency, and generalizability in a theory of language teaching. The idea that I was really referring to here, for example, we have like so many factors. Today, I talked mostly at the level of theories, like starting from general linguistics, moving to psychology, and in fact, we're talking about applied linguistic implicitly. But there are many aspects in teaching that occur in classroom, like what was I was referring to, like the syllabus design, lesson design, teacher's role, etc. And this, I'm thinking, is going to be the topic of the next video. I'm trying to ponder on this. And so this is what I did. Okay, the essay is quite short. It's not that short, still it's going to be enough, but I would like to see your ideas if you have like something to be added to it. So please tell me in the comment section. So the references I used here are, these are the books. I really, really recommend the last one, which is 1983, Stern, The Fundamental Concept of Language Teaching. Most of what I said, it's from that book. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video, and there will be others. And please like this video if you like it, and a subscribe will be a good contribution to this channel. Thank you so much.